Hi. People are going to come in. Lunch started a little late or took a long time for people to eat, which is really not a problem. So the presentation is about Webform for Drupal 8. I'm going to start off my name is Jake Rockowitz. I am a Drupal developer and software architect. I built and maintain the Webform module for Drupal 8. And the first question to start off is, what is the Webform module, or what's my definition of the Webform module for Drupal 8? And it's a form builder and submission manager. I'm starting off this way to set some context on what this presentation is about. And really simply, this is a form, this is a contact form built by the Webform module. This also looks identical to the contact form that comes with core. And this is a form submission. This is the data coming into Drupal, and this is just some random test data. And this is what the Webform module does, but we're going to get into a lot more detail. Some quick history is this module, the Webform module for Drupal 8 actually started out as a YAML form module, which I built for a client of mine in New York City, Memorial Sloan Kettering. They were one of the largest early adopters of Drupal 8, and the Webform module had not been ported, and they needed a MVP solution, minimally viable product solution for Drupal 8, so we did the YAML form module, and in 2016, I contributed the YAML form module back and worked on it all through the year, and then the beginning of this year, there was a decision to move the YAML form module over into the Webform module namespace because it had close to feature parity, and there was no movement in porting the exact code base from Drupal 7.4 to 8. Two things to emphasize is the YAML form was a developer-centric solution. You'll see exactly what I mean by that in 1 second. And the Webform module is for developers and site builders. And so what is a YAML form? And so for the MVP solution, it was just a way to type YAML and build forms. And for people that know Drupal, this is a render array that represents a form serialized to YAML. And this is the exact same form we're just looking at, where I'm defining a text field, an email field, and you're going to see some more of this. And then this leads to, what is a web form? For me, a web form is just a UI on top of that data, and where you can drag and drop your fields and create them. And I'm going to show it to you. This is a default install. I'm going to show you the contact form that we were just talking about. And for the demo, I like to do adding a company field. And I'm going to show some cool new features for people that are somewhat familiar. Recently, I added a preview functionality, so you can get a preview of all the elements that you could possibly create. I'm going to go in and add a text field, so there's some filtering. For the demo, I'm going to add a company field. And then I'm going to show you the form. And I added company at the bottom. And this is like a little mistake here. It should say your company should be required. And yes, you can go into the UI and drag it up and mark it as required. Or what I want to show you is a feature where you can edit the source. And this was, what you're looking at, it was the YAML form module, and it's still available, where you can go in and basically cut and paste your elements and move them around. And what's powerful about this is it gives you an overview of your entire form, where you can edit the labels very, very quickly. And if you actually know Drupal's form API, you can just type your forms out. I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to show you the test tab, which will fill out your form with reasonable defaults, and you actually have control over these values. So for your company, you can put in whatever values you want. I'm just using Latin text. I'm going to hit send. And this is mimicking Core's contact form, so it just displays a message, but I'm going to go back and show you the results. And here's the result that came in. You can click through and get 4 different displays. Really, the HTML display is what most people use. Table display just helps. It shows you everything in a long list if you have very long forms, and you can look at it as plain text. Moving forward, so let's just talk about what's new in the Drupal 8 version of the Webform module. It's object-oriented API, so it's basically built from ground up and mirrors how Core works with entities or objects, and it uses the plugin system to manage elements, submissions, and handlers. And there's a lot of elements now available in the Webform module out of the box. There's 70 plus different elements. Some of them are just variations. For example, there's a file upload, but then you can also have a dedicated video file upload, and the benefit of that is on your mobile device, it'll open up your video recorder. There's a lot of settings. Everything is customizable, and I'll show you that a little bit more. And there is support for composites, which I'll show you, with multiple elements working together, and multiple value elements, so you can have repeating elements, very similar to field collection. And then there are examples and templates that ship with the module, and you can customize the results. What's missing is views integration still being worked on. There's a dedicated web form views module. Rules integration is still under development because the rules module is still under development. The drag and drop UI, these things may never happen. I'm not sure we're going to import the form builder module. Advanced conditionals, there's some work still going on with conditional logic. Statistics and charts are just out. I'm not going to support that in the core web form module. I feel like third parties can handle that much better. And there needs to be more third-party integration, so pushing data to different systems like Google Docs or Google Sheets. And there are some D6 to D7 migration paths. I even tried testing them and I could not get them to fully work, but people are working on them. And then there's a ton of cool new features brought in. I'm not going to read through this total list. I'll call it my favorites. Anonymous drafts is pretty huge because you can have someone filling out a form and it'll keep track of them if they're anonymous, like a shopping cart, and when they log in, it'll take that submission and convert it over to their user account. You can inject JavaScript and style sheets into your form. It's really helpful for little nuances with layout or custom logic that you want associated with your form. You can just quickly enter that in. Another thing I personally like is dismissible inline messages. I'll have to show it to you, but it makes a big difference where you can put little notifications throughout your form that someone could dismiss, and it'll save how they dismissed it, whether it's to their user account, to the entire site, if it's just for sessions. So just to back up to who built the Webform module, it's important for me to give a shout out to Nate Lampton, who was maintaining the Webform module for Drupal 6 and 7 since 2006. And the Webform module for Drupal 7 lives on in Backdrop, and these numbers are amazing. And I don't account for much of these numbers, but they have over 500,000 installs of the D7 module, and he's hitting 4 million downloads, which is just an amazing accomplishment. Quickly, why I took on this project. I wanted to contribute something back to Drupal. Been working in Drupal for 8 years. This project is how I work. I like focusing obsessively on one thing and working on it long term, and this was a big thing to work on, and I enjoy working on it. And I really got hit really hard where Drupal needs a form builder available. Webforms is in one of the top 10 modules of Drupal community. And I think open source needs a really flexible, powerful form builder. There's a lot of form builders out there, but the open source versions of these form builders, there's different little nuances to them. WordPress has a few, and I'll actually bring them up in a second. And let's talk about why you should use the Webform module. Well, the Webform module is open source. I think it's a really important part of Drupal. It's just open source represents a lot of things. And it allows your website to collect data. That's this use case. And the use case for the Webform module for Drupal 7 is where you build a form. In this case, now you can copy from a template. You publish that form throughout your site as a page node or block, collect the submissions, send confirmations, emails, which that's what people are very familiar with. And then you review those submissions and you download them as a CSV. And I break down the use case to 3 things: build, collect, and download. But what's interesting is when I started looking at what was happening with the Webform module, I realized this third use case was coming, or this concept of distributing the data. Email is distributing the data. You're taking a submission in and you're sending an email. But what I started seeing people do is push this data into CRMs, and that's something I put a lot of energy into for the Drupal 8 version, and I'll demo that. And before we go on, I do want to come back to this alternatives to the Webform module. It's definitely, when you're evaluating any software, look at the alternatives in the proprietary space, the open source space. The 2 ones in the Drupal community that are really relevant is Form.io did a presentation at DrupalCon New Orleans, and they have integration in Drupal and they're working on it. And Core ships with the contact form module that allows you to build simple forms, and the contact storage module allows you to store the data. And that is definitely an alternative that you should look into. And someone's done a video comparing the two, the Webform module and the Core's contact module. And so now, where do you start? The Webform module is a complete solution for building forms. That's important to just understand. You install the module and you don't really have to run around getting a bunch of add-ons to get the functionality you want out of the box. And it's very simple to start off with downloading it. It is broken down into some sub-modules. For example, the UI is a dedicated submodule. The examples and templates I'm going to show you, those are submodules that you can turn on and off. The Webform module, because it has all these elements out of the box, has a lot of external libraries that are required. but there are drush commands to quickly install all of them at once, and you can turn on and off these libraries as you choose. And then I'm starting to aggregate add-ons, which are just other contrib modules that extend web forms, and trying to keep a list of them in the web form module to help people get functionality that they might need. For example, there's a MailChimp module. And then you can get help. And there's documentation available online. In the module, I'm including screencasts, tutorials to help people get started. I'm going to upgrade them once we do a release candidate. Drupal answers. There's a lot of people paying attention to the web form module in there. I respond, and there is also finally the issue queue. And I'm going to just quickly point just a few things, especially the documentation. So, sorry, I went to the wrong one. I have connectivity issues. All right. So there's a lot of documentation available. There's an introduction. There's a breakdown. So the add-ons are available online. These are also in the module. For people learning, the most important thing I want to point out is the cookbook, which I'm trying to collect snippets, code snippets of recipes to help people who are doing custom code or need certain functionality to make it easier. And I'll call it the one that I like the most here. And it really shows you the benefit of these recipes is how to programmatically alter the destination email address. This is an amazing snippet because basically when it allows you to extend the email handler, how emails are done, and change the email address, the destination email address, based on the current user's language, which is huge for a multilingual site. So if someone's looking at your site in Spanish and they fill out your contact form, it's going to route to someone who speaks Spanish, their email address. And it's a really simple code snippet. It just shows you how extensible the web form module is. Moving forward, so what can you do with the web form module? This is my goal. This is allow you to build any type of form you could possibly imagine. Anything. Any type of data you need to collect, you can build it out in the web form module and get that data and route it to any system you want. And the way you get to that point is you have to learn from the examples, templates, and look at there's examples of elements, composites, there's multi-column layout, we're using Flexbox, there's multi-step form wizards, conditional logic, and there's even some demo applications just showing you some kind of implementation patterns. And I can show some of those to you. So I've turned on the examples module. Something that changed recently is I added a style guide because I went to design for Drupal and I realized I don't need a kitchen sink of every single element, but I need a page that shows almost every element so a designer could understand what they're working with and could design the forms. So it just shows you the wizard layout, and I can show you some examples. So these are very common elements. Data elements are available, but then you can enhance telephone numbers to support international numbers. You can get in HTML editors. Here's all the file uploads. These are table selects where you can do drag and drop choices. There's buttons. There's even cute kittens where you can start and illustrate the 80 elements. You can do little kittens to do image selection. People are actually using this. There's ratings. There's signature element. There's toggle elements. There's Likert support, full Likert support, and then there's support for entity references and all the different variations you could imagine for your entity references. And finally, at the bottom of the style guide, these are examples of what a composite is. It's just a bunch of elements working together. And you have locations, and then you also get multiple composites. So this is a link composite element that has multiples, and you can just, enter in multiple. And finally, there's just some examples of how you can format and alter these elements. So these are all things you can control in the UI. You can put field prefixes, styles, layout of the title and description. There's even tooltip support. And these are the inline messages that I like so much because you can hide them. It's really helpful, and you can put conditional logic around them. So if someone fills out an element, you want to warn them that they made a mistake, you could show them the message, and they could dismiss the message, and it remembers the message. And this is just a quick example of Flexbox, but I'll just show you a better example of Flexbox right now. You can do multi-column forms. It's fully responsive and resizes to one column. And it's using CSS3 Flexbox. So it's very simple. You have full control over it. And then I think what people are really into, I'm going to just show conditional logic so people know that it's there. Hide and show logic when you check off different elements. And the big one that I think a lot of people use is multi-step form wizards. I don't have this required, so I can go through. And what's interesting is when I exit from this form, it's going to show you one of the nuances where there's a setting to prompt you not to lose your data when you exit. And there's all these settings when we get to that point. I'm going to leave. And then something for people doing large deployments of web forms, the templating, there's a template system. So if you turn on the template module, you get these default templates, and I'll just show you how the UI works. So if you could preview a job application, and you say, okay, I like that, and then you can just hit select, and you make a copy of it. You could delete all these templates and create your own templates for your own organization. It really opens up a lot of possibilities. Moving ahead. So what can you build with the web form module? It allows you to build applications. You can build rich systems. One of the best ones is an event registration system, and I can show some parts of that in a second. And these are some examples. You can do I think people are very familiar with applications, college applications, employment evaluations, event registration, donation forms. I work in healthcare, so we're doing appointments. That's a good example where we never store that patient data in Drupal and never even hits. It goes straight to Salesforce. And we're just using a handler to route it. And when it comes down to building these applications, it's all about how you publish these forms and organize them. And web forms can be fully integrated in your site in all these different ways. The top two is, you can have a web form node where it's a dedicated node that has a form on it. And it's important to say for people that are familiar with Drupal 8 is web forms are not nodes anymore. They are configuration. They're config entities. So they're kind of sitting over like a view over here, and you can place that throughout your site. So you can attach a web form to a node, and that opens up. This node starts to collect submissions specific to that node. And as soon as I show it to you, you'll get the full concept. Then you can also embed these web forms throughout your site as blocks. And since it's in the block system, you can kind of slip them into panels. And then furthermore, I've seen people do it in paragraphs very easily. They add it, they'll attach a web form to a paragraph. And there's a whole bunch of APIs where if you're a front-end themer, you can basically call #type equals web form and attach a web form anywhere in a renderer, as long as you don't nest it in another form. But anyway. So this time I'm going to go jump back to this contact form. And this is a new feature that's been added recently. There's a references tab. And I'm going to start here because, what the idea is you have this main contact form, but then you can embed it throughout your site. And you start tracking where it is in your site. So for example, I'm in the references tab. This form hasn't been placed. But I'm going to go and place this form as a contact form on the site. It will pre-fill in the web form. I'm going to save and publish. And now I'm going to actually test this form here. So this is a node now. You can put it anywhere on your site. But what's important is, so I've created a submission here. I'm going to click back. It starts tracking submissions only for this node. So going back to an event registration system, if this was an event and you had a registration form, you could attach the same registration form to multiple events and track registrations for each individual event. The way the blocks work, very similar. And go to place the blocks. I'm going to place the same block over and over again. Okay, go home. Here's the block. I'm going to just fill it out in a couple of places. So the concept behind this, what's powering this, is this concept of a source entity. So where the form's being submitted from, it's tracking the source of that form. So I'm going to some other nodes. Hit save. And I'm going to jump back up to the main contact form. And go over to submissions. And you see this column called submitted to, and it starts tracking where you're submitting the form from. So essentially that block almost pretty much became a feedback block. So you know exactly where someone's filling it out on the site and when they filled it out. You could build and get feedback throughout your whole site. Sorry. Moving on. Sure.
So if you do that, all the forms will have to be identical. If you wanted like one field different for each different use, you'd have to create a template.
Yes, but there are ways programmatically where you could tweak that a little. Personally, if I had to move one or two fields, you could put some conditional logic and change some people are doing little nuances to try to keep one form and reuse it over and over again. You could also create your own elements and then reuse those over and over again because composites are reusable. It's fine.
Can you use the conditional logic, expanding on that comment, to have certain notifications go out based on, what happened during that conditional logic, like a certain type of user, or they're interested in a certain topic,
Yeah.
then you send a separate type of notification to certain people as opposed to other people.
Yeah, it's mirroring what's being done in Drupal 7, which is you have a select menu with options, and you can route the email to different based on what someone selected in that list of options. You can route the email based to different email addresses. It doesn't get into heavy. By the way, that's one of the challenges is when you get into crazy conditional logic, it's really hard for people to understand, and that's why there's all these abilities to alter things and get in there and tweak it. And I can come back to that too, because I'm going to start talking about with email. This kind of leads into, it provides like the web. I've got to back up because I was trying. What can you do with submissions? The Webform module provides an API to download and/or handle submissions, and handling is this distributing emails and routing, and you can send confirmations and notifications to any system. And a notification, email is the most default one that ships out of the box. This other one, the Webform module, includes remote posting, so you can take the data and post it to anywhere you want. And then finally, you can download it as a CSV, JSON, or YAML, and that's a plugin, so you can extend that to do XML package, which I think people have talked about. And I'm going to show that to you because we're looking at it. I'm going to focus on, one second. So this is the contact form we've been talking about. I just want to show you the email handler that's been set up. So I don't have any option widgets, but basically if you go in here and select something that has options, it'll display all those options and let you enter email addresses to route the email address, to route the email to different addresses. I want to show you the remote post, and I actually did some work on it recently. So if I go over here, I have a working example of a remote post. Sorry. There it is. I'm going to show you the back end for a quick second. So you can enter, different URLs based on the state of the submission. Most submissions go with completed. When someone fills out the form, you want to send it to your CRM. You can also still send drafts to your CRM, and you basically can enter in any URL. Add custom data, which makes it possible to add authentication parameters, extra pieces of data. And at the bottom, you can even now enter any type of guzzle option to this request, which includes altering the header of the request, which is really useful for authentication. So you can put authentication keys in these remote posts. And I'll even show you how this one's working. Go over to test. And literally yesterday, I had the ability to get data back from the remote post, like a confirmation number, and return it to the user. So you can pull that data in. And the email handler and the remote post have debuggers built in, so you can look at the request going out, and this shows you all the form options going out to the system, and then it also helps you and gives you the tokens that you can get from the response. So that's the confirmation number. This is a brand new feature. There is a limitation here. Is that token has to go into submission data. It's not like it's only available for when the request is made and when it comes back. You have to have a value field that's using the token. I'm still working on evolving it, but by the way, that's why there's examples, because you can use these to get you started. You can copy this code and work off of it. And then the one that everyone's really familiar with is exporting into a CSV, and I just I'm going to jump a different way. So here's all the submissions we created, and you go to download, and you can select different formats. I personally like the HTML table, which opens in Excel in a very pretty way. And I'm going to actually uncheck this download because you can see it on screen, and you get a pretty little table that you can extend this and build your own tables too. Okay, moving on. So this is leading to this concept: you can front end any back end. You can actually turn off, you can build forms that never hit Drupal. I want to emphasize, you can override the action property of a form and never have the form hit Drupal. I know some people that are doing it because they have hundreds of thousands of submissions coming in each day, and they're having them route to a Node.js backend, which is a little faster. But they're using Drupal to build the forms, and it makes their life a lot easier. And this all comes down to what can you customize? Well, I want to emphasize before I start showing people what you can customize, Webform module ships with reasonable defaults. You don't have to change much to get it working out of the box, but if you need to alter something, you can. And I can go back, and I'll start with this form and just show you edit. So now we're going to the other tabs related to a form. There's this little widget up here to collapse all and show all. Sometimes the expand all is very useful because you can disable the saving of results, so you only send email. You can control the URL path settings. You can set all the messaging. Every message is customizable from the UI. That gets out to confirmation exceptions. You can also inject form classes and styles into a form and alter how it's going to look. It's very useful for like Bootstrap, has a lot of classes available. And then you get into a lot of nuanced behaviors, including disabling the back button. You can add a reset button. That was just kept coming up, but I don't recommend it, but people can do it. And then you can adjust your wizards and how it's working, how it's behaving, whether you have progress bars. Moving on, submissions, same thing. You can, what I was talking about with anonymous submissions and the converting to authenticated, you have to turn that on. My recommendation is you have to scroll through this and look through and get familiar with it. And you can also Google for answers because people post this on Stack Overflow and we respond pretty quickly. And confirmations, you have full control of the confirmations. So you can do them inline, you can do modals, you can do messages, you can redirect to URLs. And this is even where you can actually, this is the example in custom settings, you can just turn off. If you go in and set a custom post, that's it. Drupal's not getting this form submission. It's going somewhere else. It never hits Drupal, which is really also if you have different security requirements. Something to jump up to the main setting. So you also can set defaults for all your confirmation messages. Usually you should start here. One thing I do want to show is you can control all the libraries and turn on and off the libraries if you don't want certain libraries. The module does ship with Select 2 support, but you can change it to use Chosen if you wanted to. I'm going to move on. So how do you extend the module? This is like the lay of the land. What's what? Well, Webforms are config entities. They get exported into one single config file that that's the way it's being done because it makes it easier to manage these forms. They're really complex. And you can adjust them in configuration. You can have patterns where you upload them to the server. There's modules to help with config management, like config split, so that, I'm digressing into something technically challenging with configuration is sometimes you don't want all your configuration updated on your server at once. And sometimes you want your admins to go into your web forms and start adjusting them, but you don't want to overwrite them when you're importing config. And there's modules like config split that'll help manage it. Submissions are content entities, which opens up most common things in core, which is you got rules, you got access controls. They're not storing things in field API, but that's just one limitation. Elements, handlers, and exporters are plugins, so they're completely extendable, easy to write your own. Lots of people are creating their own custom elements and composites and handlers. For example, with the remote posts, I see people extending it to do OAuth authentication. And then with what's being outputted, everything runs through the Drupal theme system, so you can alter anything, any element, and how it's going to look. And there's a lot of tests, so that can get you, if you're diving deep into the APIs, you should look at the tests. It'll help you get familiar with the way things are working. And this is a new thing that I kind of wanted to bring up, because this is a really cool, interesting feature. It's how do you translate a web form? I know people are familiar with that Drupal is really powerful, multilingual. And Drupal 8 makes it easy to translate web forms, and I kind of want to demo this because I'm working with Lingotech, is that Lingotech makes it ridiculously easy. I'm proud of this demo because it's so simple and so powerful. And so before I show you, I just want to walk through what Lingotech is. Lingotech's just a service provider. They provide a translation management system that makes it possible that it works directly in Drupal to translate your content entities, your config entities. They provide free machine translation using Google Translate and Microsoft Translator, and their business is providing professional translation services and localization services. And it's a pretty simple workflow with them, kind of good old 3 steps, is you basically on your site, you're uploading your content, they're translating it on their server, and they send it back down. And it's ridiculously easy to demo. And basically I've installed it. I'm going to go over to config, because we talked about that web forms are config entities. I'm going to go down to my web forms, and this just shows you that basically anything you want, you can translate. And I'm doing this manually, and something about their process is this can all be automated. It's just you build a form and it just gets translated in the background. You come back in a couple hours and it's translated. I'm manually basically clicking through and uploading. I uploaded the English, and now I'm requesting that Spanish and Russian be translated. That's all. The click-through is just basically going through the step. Send up the translation. They send back a notification and say it's ready. When everything's green, this form has been completely translated. So I'm going to click through and just show you the Spanish, the Russian. I'm going to go to Translate tab because I also just want to show you what's really going on in the background. Webforms is just completely translatable. It just made your life a little easier, where it's just taking all this text and translating it. And why I'm kind of promoting LinguaTech is what's incredibly powerful about this is it's translating the configuration, which means your emails are translated, all the data in the back end, everything going out is translated. So your entire form has just been translated. And I just did it in 3 clicks. And I'm working with LinguaTech because they have a referral program. Well, sorry, I'm going to back up a second. I want to emphasize before I start talking, this is all about people contributing to open source and contributing to the community. And I want to encourage people to contribute to the Webform module. And it's really important if you're using it to report your bugs and, hopefully fix them. And if you have feature requests or need function, a lot of the features you see are because people requested them and they made a lot of sense, so I just implemented them. And I desperately need help with documentation. That's my weakest point. So any help there. And I think it's important to spread your word and tell your stories if you're using the Webform module to accomplish certain things. And yeah, you can contribute and sponsor a feature. And I've been promoting that concept because some people have paid for certain features in the Webform module, but I'm trying this other approach of getting kind of a sponsorship or referral program with LinguaTech. If you just say that I referred you, I get a referral. If you go to use LinguaTech's professional service, I get a referral fee. And I can use my dog to shamelessly plug it. But this is huge if it works, because if I can get 1 or 2 referral fees per year, that can help me support the Webform module, and it makes it better than asking people for individual donations. And it's an experimental thing, so I'm going to definitely I would love feedback about it. The one thing I'm going to demo also, this is stuff I need feedback on. I want to be very honest, is I'm trying to promote this in the module to encourage people to use it. These are dismissible messages. Once this is checked, it goes away until you update the module. And if you go into add-ons, I'm also promoting it with a video. No one's really doing this. I'm doing it to see how it'll work. Anyone interested in translation should fill out this form. It takes a second. It makes a huge difference in helping you support the Webform module. And you should really use LinguaTech. It's free. What I just showed you is free. Those click-throughs that just happened, it's just free. You just have to set it up, and it wasn't that much work. So moving on to what's next with the Webform module, I just want to kind of go over, yes, views is a big one, because I think people building applications are going to need views to help build custom displays. Rules, I'm looking forward to the rules module being ready for DA. People are using it. Conditionals will keep getting improved. I'm looking for the hiding and showing wizard pages. I want to add more templates. Third-party integration is a big one. The demo, the one that I want to call it just recently happened. Someone did a demo of the Webform module comparing it to Contact and showed how Zapier can route these submissions anywhere. It was kind of an amazing demo where he had Webform going into a Google Sheet, and this was no code whatsoever. And the UI and UX is going to keep getting improved, and hopefully with outside in, there'll be this system tray instead of these dialogues popping up. They'll be moved over to the right-hand side. And this is a big one for me that I've been working on for the past year so Webforms doesn't use Field API. I'm looking for ways to get it to use Field API. The concept that I'm working on is this notion that you have these really huge forms. You can build gigantic forms with 200 fields, but only 10 or 20 of those fields really need to go into Field API, and coming up a way to map your web form submission to go into fields. And this gets a little technical, but if you get your data into fields, then you open up a whole bunch of other functionality in core that you can do with fields, including revisioning, workflow, and stuff like that. So, in closing, it comes down to how I can help you with web forms. I'm definitely a consultant, developer, training, support. On my blog, I talk about sponsoring a feature and working with people who are using the web form module. If you hit roadblocks, to make sure they don't happen and to help you succeed. And this is my website, jrockwitz.com. And Ralph says thanks at the very end. Thank you. Questions?
Do you have what do you recommend for spam control prevention?
Well, actually, I don't get to demo it, but I could demo it. CAPTCHA is pretty good. CAPTCHA is fully supported, so you can just insert the CAPTCHA in. CAPTCHA has one bug where it doesn't work on multi-step forms, not related to the web form module. CAPTCHA has this weird rebuild. When a form reloads, it starts losing it. Honeypot is amazing. There's full Honeypot support. So you can turn on Honeypot throughout your whole site, or you can turn on Honeypots for individual modules. I use Honeypot a lot. I've found Honeypot to be the most successful. Molem has gone away. It's going away, so I don't. And Molem is very limited on. Molem doesn't work great because it analyzes text, large bodies of text, and web forms tend not to be large bodies of text. So yeah. Oh, there's one more. By the way, that's what this add-on section is so helpful. It is somewhere in here I have spam. It's alphabetical. Yeah, I was starting on the name Antibot, which is a really interesting JavaScript workaround where it blocks, you have to have JavaScript enabled to view a form. Other questions?
You had a donations form up there. What did you use to process the payment?
There's nothing. It's just it's a template. There are people doing some payment add-ons. There's a credit card field that I think I still have marked as experimental because I haven't made the concrete decision to do it. I've personally done payments in web forms. It's pretty easy to add a handler to just route to whatever payment system you want. When I showed you the remote post tracking the confirmation number, that was a huge piece that was missing to handle payments correctly. Because if you have a form and it goes to a payment system, you want to be able to get the confirmation number back into your data. And the add-on section is pretty good for this because there's Stripe. Someone did a Stripe payment handler, and people are adding other ones as they come on board. Other questions?
Yeah, when it comes to the form and the layout, so I'm saying we turn on theme debug. I'm assuming we have a full list of all template files all the way down to the finest granular that we still have access to?
Yeah. It's important to say this is just Form API. So this is a front end to Drupal's Form API. So all the templates that you're familiar with for the text field, they're the standard templates that you're used to. So in a lot of cases, whatever theme you install will just work. And then you get little nuances. Like I am supporting, there is a web form bootstrap module included in the module in the main web form module to fix little nuances with the bootstrap theme. Like just bootstrap has certain ways of doing things. The big one that's got me is bootstrap likes the button tag and not the input type equals submit. So you have to do some normalization to kind of get things to look right.
And to follow it up, can you show us the CSS and JSS tab?
Sure. Yeah. Love to. Forms. Huh. Oh, that's so funny. I'm in Russian. You got me stuttered for a second because I was like, why am I not seeing the contact form, which for every single demo I've ever done has been at the top of the page, and it really threw me off. But all right, edit. So it's really just code mirror. Like there's a code mirror editor, and I mean, really, you can do something like form, font, weight, 2M. Yeah, I'll fix that typo. Thanks, whoever caught me on that. Oh, it didn't kick in. Sorry. It's probably because there's another more specific CSS selector there.
Does that support files or is that actual markup?
Actual markup that's going in. If you're doing files, if you're doing CSS, what?
Shouldn't it be font size?
Thank you. Hard to show things you're not practiced on.
Yeah.
Hey, look, it's really big. Ta-da. I did it this way because it's just like for little nuances, like adjusting a margin. I use it, for adjusting a margin where you need some conditional logic, and what's nice is it packages it with the config file. If you want to include external JS, you should do it with your theme layer as attachments. And this definitely doesn't support that, because that'd be like a security issue if someone could start attaching external JS into the form. Other questions?
That's actually getting to that ahead of documents.
Yeah. Anything else, or we're good?
How about the testing? Are you using another module, or how do you test?
Well, there's this test tab that'll fill out a form, so it'll fill out incredibly long forms and make your life easier. With the testing, I'm just using Core's. I actually am still using Core's simple test with a few PHP unit tests. So it's Core's testing framework, and I got a shout out to Drupal.org's team for their test bot, which is just amazing. With maintaining this module, you can throw up your patch and it'll spin up a full environment and test it for you. It's a dedicated test, but Drupal is switching to PHP units, so that'll be the direction that everyone will go in. And there's some JavaScript tests, but very few people are heavily using a JavaScript test. Any other questions?
I say you have to a signature box. Is that for digital signatures, I'll assume, or can they, with their mouse, just sign the forms?
Yeah, it's a third-party library. It's, I think, called Signature Pad, and it records an image of the signature, so it captures the full image, and then it actually will send that in the email. I think it captures it in a binary format or something that you can put into any system. Let me give all the way up to the top. Sorry, I just want to be fair.
Sure. I was just going to ask, how well does it integrate with Migrate, for instance, the core Migrate module? So if you need to move stuff from one site to another site.
I'm sighing. Okay, so I have someone. There are 2 Migrate modules available, like a Webform migrate from D6 to D7. I have someone who's asking me, because they are having problems with migrations, that they've decided to rebuild the forms and do a CSV migrate. And I think, I agree with him on this, is like, if we can get that working, that brings up what you're talking about is, if we can get a CSV migrate, you can move data from one system to another. There's also full APIs. So there, I don't know about the REST API, but literally in the code, you can add submissions ridiculously easy. I sighed because I'm having problems with Migrate module, and I know what I'm doing. And I want to vent. I'm frustrated because I will go through a test, and I'll get a crashing error on something that's just an example. And I'm befuddled by it. I'm sorry.
The reason why I said we had a training session on migration and like half the room, because of a recent change the module got, since it's experimental, got a error screen, one screen down. So yeah, I mean, that's unrelated to this, but yes, I commiserate with you frustration.
In a lot, and I also, just to throw it out there with Webforms, now that you can edit the source so easily, it's pretty easy to just build them quick, to copy what you have from D7. But I think the data stuff is a big one. And honestly, I think the CSV stuff's going to happen in the next month or so, because I have someone talking to me about it, and I feel like that could solve a lot of people's problems. Especially, it brings people in from outside systems too. No one's going to expect a Salesforce form to be migrated into Drupal, but they want their data to come in. Your question?
Yeah, I was asked how does it work with other modules. You mentioned migration. How about panels, for example? Did you try it?
So I'm not actively using panels. If someone files an issue, I have ways of testing panels. I know wizards don't work well with panels. Technical issue is caching. Is if you start embedding things in other things and they heavily cache those things, it can break. Paragraphs works really well, and it's important. The way they're being done is there's a field. The way that Webforms attach to a node, it's an entity reference field. So any system that supports kind of entity references. So Paragraphs does a really good job. Panels, you'd have to insert it as a block. It's doable. I'm not thinking other ways. There's not too many limitations. People have been able to use it. People have been able to get the module to work in many different ways. I mean, one interesting pattern I've seen is people actually use Webforms to replace a views exposed form with a much richer form and layout, and just like literally turn off the views exposed form and put in a web form that then just routes to the view. There's an actual screencast of it. It's a really cool feature. Any other questions? Well, thank you. We're good on time.
Cool, thanks.
Too hot.
You were moving.
I was like, geez.
Do you want to stop that?
Yeah.